More than 15,000 foreign nationals purchased property in Korea last year, accounting for a record 0.9% of the total land acquisitions in the country.
지난해 국내 부동산을 사들인 외국인이 15,000명을 넘어서면서 전체 매수인의 0.9%를 차지해 역대 최고 비중을 기록했습니다. So more and more foreign nationals are buying land in Korea.
Yes, they are owners of real estate here in Korea. In fact, such data began not too long ago that the government started compiling and collecting this sort of data, 2010.
Right.
So it's been about 14 years now. But if you look at the numbers beginning in 2010, that number was about 0.2%.
Right.
In terms of the proportion of land owned by foreign nationals. But now that has risen to 0.9%. So that's more than a fourfold increase.
Exactly. And thank you for correcting me there. We are talking about real estate, of course.
Sure.
부동산에 대한 얘기죠. I think I said land earlier on. 근데 이제 외국인이 2010년도부터 우리나라 부동산을 얼마나 매수했는지 그 기록이 있어요. 근데 2010년도에는 전체 매수인의 0.2%를 차지했는데 자, 이제 몇 년이 지난 거죠? 2010년으로부터 지금 한
About 14 years.
14년 정도가 지났는데 이제는 0.9%.
I have a question. Is land and real estate different?
No, I guess it would be a part of it, but it's not restricted to it.
Right. I would assume if you want to take the actual physical soil and the land, you would call that. Real estate would be any buildings and property that would be on it as well. But I believe it includes all of that. I'm assuming. But if anyone knows the exact definition of how they calculate this, that'd be great. But if you break down the numbers even more by country, China is the number one. In terms of Chinese nationals are the biggest purchasers of land in Korea. They account for 73%. So almost 3/4 of all foreign landowners here are from China, followed by Americans and Canadians.
그렇습니다. 국적별로 중국인이 이제 외국인 중 우리나라 부동산을 매수한 가장 비중이 많은 외국인이 되겠고요. 그 다음으로 미국인, 캐나다인. 그 리스트를 쭉 보니까 이제 대만, 또 호주도 이렇게 그 이어서 있더라고요.
Okay, so it's worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. 지역별로 이제 보게 되면은 이제 집합 건물이라고 해서 뭐 아파트라든지 오피스텔, 뭐 다세대 주택 등등등 이런 것들이 이제 어느 지역에서 외국인들이 가장 많이 샀느냐? 1위가 인천이더라고요.
네. That makes sense. I'm putting two and two together in terms of there's a lot of Chinese nationals
in Incheon.
In Incheon. There's Chinatown over there too.
Of course, that
if
makes
you go to the
sense.
immigration office in Incheon, there's a big proportion of Chinese nationals there too.
That makes sense. 네, 인천에 이어서 충남, 경기도, 제주도, 충북 요 순이었습니다. 자, 우리 표현 볼게요. The first one is to account for.
Yeah, we talked about foreign ownership accounted for 0.9%. When you account for something, in this case, it means to make up or form a part of something, a proportion or a ratio here.
아하, account for 그리고 숫자 이렇게 나오면은 이만큼을 차지하다 이런 뜻이죠. 그냥 숫자가 아니라 비율이 되겠습니다.
Normally we think of accounting as a study. It means when you account for something, you give a reason or an explanation. In accounting, you're explaining the numbers behind your business, for example. So there's a little bit of a difference in meaning there.
Yeah, I used to take some elective courses. Well, not I used to, I did, I should say, back in university. Accounting
101.
101, I enjoyed.
Assets plus liabilities equals shareholder, stockholder expectations or something.
Yeah, there
something
you go.
like that.
But then once
Equity,
it started getting a little more difficult, then it gave me a headache. But I remember.
I was a business major, so I should know that.
There you go. Perfect. 네. 보통 이렇게 외국에서 대학교 수업 뒤에다 101 이런 게 붙으면은 그 개론이라는 뜻이 있어요. 인문 이런 거죠.
Basics,
그렇죠?
right?
네, 가장 기초 수업을 이렇게 하죠. 제가 이제 뭐라 그러지? 그 번데기 앞에서 주름 잡는다고 해야 되나? 회계학 수업 하나 저는 들어봤는데 비즈니스 메이저 앞에서 제가
By no means do I know any accounting. Trust me. You look at my bank accounts.
아이고.
Okay.
자, 그래서 accounting이라는 게 이제 회계학이에요. 그런데 account for라는 표현이 이만큼의 비율을 차지하다라는 동사가 되겠습니다. 자, 그 다음에 land acquisition 볼까요?
When you acquire something, you possess or gain ownership of it. So here, simply put, you're gaining possession of land or real estate.
네, land, 네, 여기서 땅, 토지, acquisition이 취득입니다. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 제가 첫 번째 헤드라인 읽어볼게요. More than 15,000 foreign nationals purchased property in Korea last year, accounting for a record 0.9% of the total land acquisitions in the country. Moving on, this is our next headline.
The U.S. has kicked off daylight saving time for 2024, giving most Americans an extra hour of sunlight until the clocks fall back again in the autumn.
미국이 올해 일광 절약 시간제, 일명 서머타임을 어제부터 실시했습니다. 이로써 서머타임이 해제되는 가을까지 미국인들 대부분에게 낮 1시간이 더 주어지게 됐습니다. This can be a bit of an unfamiliar concept for Koreans because we don't have it here.
If you were born after 1988, because Korea did temporarily enact daylight savings.
I was born before that, but I didn't know.
For the Olympics. Maybe you're busy doing something else.
Too young, I guess.
But for the Olympics, if my memory is correct, up until
rid of
1988, for a few years, Korea toyed with it a little bit, experimented with it, but decided ultimately, like much of the rest of the world, that daylight saving doesn't really work because even in the U.S., my understanding is that the majority of Americans are against daylight saving because it's very disruptive to your daily life cycle. And in the fall, it's okay because you get an extra hour of sleep. But in the spring, like overnight, yesterday, you lose an hour of sleep. So
exactly.
everyone's biorhythms are completely off.
Yeah, the debate does go on. 진짜 이 존폐 논란이 계속 이어지고 있는 daylight saving time이긴 한데요. 어쨌거나 3월 10일부로 미국에서 이제 올해 daylight saving이 시작이 됐어요. 그러니까 새벽 뭐 예를 들자면 2시였던 게 갑자기 새벽 3시가 된 거잖아요.
Yes. So there's no 2:30 in history in America on Sunday because it goes from 2 o'clock immediately to 3 o'clock.
아하, 새벽 2시를 기준으로 갑자기 새벽 3시가 돼버리니까 1시간 좀 덜 자게 되는 이런 느낌이 있을 것 같긴 해요.
Exactly. And in terms of the expression itself, a lot of native speakers incorrectly pronounce it. They say daylight savings time, but technically it is daylight saving time, or you can just casually refer to it as daylight savings.
그렇군요. 이게 일광 절약 시간제 daylight saving time인데요. 그래서 미국 같은 경우에는 이제 어디 지역이냐에 따라 시간이 다 다르죠. 그래서 동부 같은 경우에는 Eastern Time이 있는데 이 daylight saving이 적용이 됐을 때는 Eastern Daylight Time이라고 해서 EDT라고 하고 그 외에는 EST라고 해서 Eastern Standard Time. 복잡하죠, 여러분?
It's very confusing.
네, 그래서 어쨌든 이제 시간이 이렇게 1시간씩 옮겨졌습니다. 그래서 현재 지금 시각이요. 우리나라에서 8시 15분이거든요. 오전 8시 15분. 선생님은 이거 잘 아시잖아요.
Yeah, I got to do. I can do this in my head. The way I memorize it, Eastern time in the U.S. is just take an hour behind Korea and then flip the AM PM.
오케이. 그럼 지금 뉴욕에서는
It'd be 7 p.m. 16 p.m.
16 p.m.
Yes.
어젯밤.
Yes.
그러니까 3월 10일.
So if you live in New York and you want to see what the future is like, you can just watch us.
Yes, exactly. 그리고 LA 같은 경우는 이제 Pacific Time을 적용을 하는데 거기는 지금 현재 시간이
It's 4:16.
오후
p.m. on a Sunday.
그렇죠. 오후
Yes.
4시 16분.
So they're still getting ready for work.
That's right.
Whereas here in Korea, everyone's already going to work now.
네. 그래서 여러분도 지금 이거 좀 헷갈리잖아요. 이거를 매해 하고 있는 미국인들과 캐나다인 영국인들도 사실 매해 헷갈려 합니다. 그날이 되면은 잠깐만 오늘 맞아? 지금 시간 이거 맞아? 그러면서 이 불편함이 늘 있어 왔기 때문에 그래서 존폐 논란이 없애자. 뭐 아니다. 막 이런 게 있는 거죠.
And when you're young, you forget, do we go forward in the fall or in the spring? So an easy way to remember that, when we were young, it was fall back, spring forward. That's how we remembered it.
Fall back, spring forward. 자, 네, 그러면은 이제 표현을 보도록 하겠습니다. An extra hour of sunlight.
Yeah, an extra hour of sunlight means, as it is, that you're given an additional hour of daytime, which is the whole theory behind daylight saving. For farmers, I believe Benjamin Franklin had thought of that. But an extra hour means it's talking about daylight saving time.
아하, sunlight가 햇빛이죠. 그러니까 해를 받을 수 있는 1시간을 더 준다. An extra hour of sunlight. 그게 이제 본 취지가 되겠고요. And the clocks fall back라고 했습니다. Is that what? Fall back in
to
the
fall
fall.
back, right?
They
to
fall back in the fall.
Here, literally, to fall back, the time is going backwards here. But normally, when you fall back on something, it's used. It's mean to use something, especially when other things have failed. So, if there's a plan plan A didn't work, you fall back on plan B,
네,
and you resort to that.
그러니까 다시 뭔가를 돌아간다라는 뜻인데요. 실제로 미국의 Daylight Saving Time은 올해는 11월 3일부로 해제가 돼요. 그래서 It falls back in the fall 이렇게 외우면은 좋다라는 제인 선생님의 조언 너무 좋네요. 유럽 같은 경우는 아직은 아닌데 3월 31일부터 Daylight Saving이 시작이 돼서 10월 마지막까지 이어집니다.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the U.S. expanded daylight saving, even though everyone is not a fan of it.
그래요. 그래서 나라별로 한번 확인을 하셔야 될 것 같아요. 대체적으로 미국은 이제 동부 기준으로 봤을 때 14시간 차이가 아니라 이제 13시간 차이입니다. 우리나라 기준으로 했을 때. 그리고 유럽은 영국 기준으로 봤을 때는 9시간에서 8시간으로 바뀔 건데요. 아직은 바뀌지 않았습니다. Alright, here's the headline again. The US has kicked off daylight saving time for 2024, giving most Americans an extra hour of sunlight until the clocks fall back again in the autumn.
U.S., British, and French forces have reportedly repelled a series of Iranian-backed Houthi attacks off the coast of Yemen, with the Pentagon saying at least 28 uncrewed aerial vehicles were downed over the Red Sea on Saturday.
미국, 영국, 프랑스 연합군이 예멘 해역에서 친이란 반군 후티의 공격을 물리친 것으로 전해졌습니다. 미 국방부 발표에 따르면 지난 토요일에 홍해 상공에서 발발한 이 교전에서 최소 28대의 후티 드론이 격추됐습니다. Tell us more.
Yeah, we talked about this last week
Yeah, we did.
when these Houthi forces downed a UK ship, a commercial ship for the first time.
Right.
So I believe the U.S., British, and French forces are retaliating here by repelling a series of additional attacks. So it's a very unstable part of the world at this moment here.
Right. And when you say you down something as a verb, that means in this case you attack it and then it goes down.
Goes down. It could be an airplane. A ship could be downed, so that it's out of commission, that it's out of order, right?
Absolutely. So the situation, of course, is getting quite big. It's not just the US and the UK, but France as well, because they are aligned together. Let's have a look at our first expression, which is to repel something.
To repel something. To repel something means to, here in this case, to drive or force away an attack or an attacker. So the forces here repelled, R-E-P-E-L-L-E-D, Iranian Houthi forces.
I think of insect repellents.
Repellent, of course.
When I hear this word. And that's also, getting rid of the insects or the pests.
Or if something is repelling, that means it's gross or disgusting. The sight of vegetables repelled the child, for example, right?
Children don't like green
They
things.
don't. I wonder why. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
repel이라는 게 이게 물리치다의 의미가 있습니다. 그래서 이제 그 해충제를 insect repellent 이렇게 부르기도 하고요.
And be careful of the pronunciation. The stress is on the second syllable. So it's a repel. And also distinguish this from a homonym, R-A-P-P-E-L, to rappel. If you're a rock climber, you'll know it means to go down a rope. A very steep vertical downslope is to rappel. That's R-A-P-P-E-L, but the pronunciation is the same.
그런 거를 이제 동음이할 때 homonym,
Homonym, yeah.
이렇게 부를 수 있겠죠. 근데 rappel, 그 다른 rappel은 밧줄을 타고 내려가는 거를 말하는데 그 단어가 여기서는 쓰인 게 아니고요. 스펠링이 다릅니다. 발음은 같지만 여기서는 R-E-P-E-L. 자, 그 다음에 uncrewed aerial vehicles.
Yes, UAVs, i.e. or AKA drones, right? So it's interesting how this article is written uncrewed because I've seen it as unmanned aerial vehicles, but I think this is a more generous or more encompassing and inclusive sort of
Maybe it's more
description.
PC.
It is
again.
PC. That's what I wanted to say. But uncrewed aerial vehicles, or they're known as UAVs or drones. So they're vehicles piloted or by remote control or by onboard computers.
Yeah, often when we have space-related stories or satellites, we see the word unmanned, 무인이라는 뜻인데 이 man이라는 단어가 남자라는 뜻도 있기 때문에 이제 man 대신에 여기서는 crew를 썼어요. uncrewed. 뜻은 똑같이 무인이라는 뜻입니다.
And also, speaking of UAVs, there are also UAPs now. They're unidentified aerial phenomena, which used to be called UFOs.
Right.
So the U.S. military doesn't call them UFOs anymore. They just call all these phenomena UAPs.
그렇죠.
So just to distinguish UAVs and UAPs.
Absolutely. 네. Uncrewed aerial vehicle은 무인 항공기, 드론을 말합니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. US, British, and French forces have reportedly repelled a series of Iranian-backed Houthi attacks off the coast of Yemen, with the Pentagon saying at least 28 uncrewed aerial vehicles were downed over the Red Sea on Saturday. Now, moving on to a different story over in LA. Let's have a look.
This year's gift bags for the 25 Academy Award nominees are said to be worth over $170,000 or 200 million won, with the swag packages including luxurious vacations, cosmetics, and other goodies.
네, 올해 아카데미상 주요 부문 후보 25명에게 제공되는 협찬업체 선물 액수가 호화 여행권과 화장품 등을 포함해 총 17만 달러, 우리 돈으로 2억 원 이상인 것으로 알려졌습니다. Wow.
Yeah, like these nominees need more goodies, right? But I suspect a lot of this is for promotional purposes, right? And we're talking about here the nominees that present during the televised portion of the Academy Awards here. But if you look at the list of things that these nominees receive, they include, 5-star trips worth about $50,000 to Switzerland, gift bags, including, designer products like handbags and things
diamond
like that.
Rings.
Diamond rings, yes.
Diamond necklaces, I think.
Sure, jewelry,
like
you name it,
Yeah.
And, everyone's very interested in what the nominees receive every year, but it was stopped, it was halted for a couple of years because there's a lot of scrutiny from the IRS for tax purposes. So these were labeled as quote-unquote gifts, but if they're a gift, technically you wouldn't need to pay a tax up to a certain amount, but because of this scrutiny, the Academy stopped doing this, but they've returned to the tradition.
이 아카데미 시상식에서요. 그 배우와 감독들이 후보에 오르게 되면은 이런 기프트백을 준대요. 근데 그 기프트백 안에는 정말 지금 얘기하신 것처럼 호화 여행권부터 시작해서 보석, 화장품 등등등 굉장히 많은 고가의 물건들이 있는데 이거를 다 합치면은 도합 한 2억 원 정도가 된다고 하고 실제로 2020년에요. 그때 왜 기생충 그 영화가 정말
the production staff
네,
there,
노미네이티드 됐을 때도 역시 마찬가지로 봉준호 감독과 배우들도 이런 기프트백을 받았다고 합니다. 그때 당시에도 우리 돈으로 한 2억 원어치 기프트백을 받았다고 하네요. 와.
Yeah, they should donate it.
자, 첫 번째 표현 보도록 하겠습니다. Swag package가 뭐예요?
Swag packages. So normally swag, it comes from it's stolen goods. Loot.
Okay.
I think of pirates when I think of swag
Right.
here. But, in slang, in the hip hop community, if someone has swag, that means they're very bold. They have a lot of self-assurance. But here, anything that's given away for free, especially for promotional purposes, is swag. So this group of swag, it would be a swag package.
그러니까 보통 뭐 힙합을 하는 분들이 이게 스웩이 있다 이렇게 말하잖아요. 그 스웩이긴 한데 여기서는 의미가 선물 보따리라는 그런 느낌으로 보시면 될 것 같아요.
Yeah, whatever we aren't is swag.
그래요?
Right? Or you probably have a little more swag than I do.
선생님은 스웩이 있어요.
No,
저는
no.
없지만.
Let's-
자, 그래서 이 gift bag 아니면 goodie bag, 뭐 swag package 다 같은 뜻입니다. 그 어떤 이제 선물 패키지라고 보시면 될 것 같고. goodie라는 단어도 볼까요?
Yeah, goodie, something attractive or desirable, something usually, I think of food, candy, something tasteful, pleasant to eat. So anything like that. When you go on an airplane, they give you a little bag of goodies, sometimes slippers, toothbrush, toothpaste, things like that.
그러니까 작은 그 물건들인데 이게 뭐런 치약 칫솔 이런 게 될 수도 있고 기내에서는 이제 long haul flight를 타게 되면 슬리퍼랑 뭐 치약 칫솔 어떤 데 안대도 주고 이러잖아요. 이런 거 다 goodies고 여기 이 경우에는 이제 배우들에게 주는 선물들, 협찬된 그런 선물들을 또 goodies라고 말할 수 있습니다.
Or you could be a goody two shoes.
Ah, yes.
A goody, that means you're too good to, for example, to a teacher. If you're a goody two shoes, who the teacher's pet is
그렇죠.
usually a goody two shoes.
네, 그렇습니다. 그리고 이제 이 LA에서 열리는데요. 시간이 이제 이스턴 타임 기준 저녁 7시라고
Yes.
하는데 지금이에요, 지금.
It's
그죠?
4 p.m.
네.
On the West Coast.
그죠?
It started just
조금 전에 우리 시간으로 8시, LA 시간으로는 오후 4시, 그러나 동부 시간 기준으로 미국에서 말하기 때문에 오후 7시에 시작한다고 말은 하지만 지금 시작이 돼서 이제 누가 과연 상을 받게 될지는 저희 방송 아마 끝날 때쯤이나 돼야 알 수 있을 것 같네요.
Yeah, so if you're a movie fan, just wait until after morning special and then you can find out the results.
우리 방송 끝나고도 한참 후가 돼야 전체적인 결과는 나오긴 합니다. 11시는 넘어야 될 거예요. 자, 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. This year's gift bags for the 25 Academy Award nominees are said to be worth over $170,000 or 200 million won, with the swag packages including luxurious vacations, cosmetics, and other goodies. Let's move on to the final headline.
In a new study, researchers in France found that people who ate a breakfast rich in refined carbohydrates were rated less attractive than those who started the day with healthier, unrefined carbs.
네, 프랑스의 한 최신 연구 결과 정제 탄수화물이 많이 든 아침 식사를 하는 사람들이 건강한 비정제 탄수화물 식단을 택하는 사람들보다 덜 매력적으로 평가되는 것으로 나타났습니다. Well, you know what I'm going to ask you, Shane.
What?
What did you have for breakfast
What did I
this
have for
morning?
breakfast? You know, I had a banana and
Okay.
some English breakfast tea.
Oh,
I did.
you had some 비정제 탄수화물.
Yes, unrefined carbohydrates.
Very good. 그래 어쩐지 매력적으로 보이시더라고요.
Oh, is that right? Am I? Is this study? I was going to say this study is ridiculous. You know, people put money into these studies, but that's what science is, right?
네. Tell us more. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, carbohydrates get a very bad rap
Yeah.
these days. They have a bad reputation. There's this thinking that in the dietary nutrition world that carbohydrates equal bad. But our body needs carbohydrates. Now, it depends on what sort of carbohydrates, right? We
Right.
have refined and we have unrefined. So the refined carbohydrates are things like, you know, cookies, bread,
Yeah.
you know, things. Unrefined here would mean something that's raw, that's been untouched, right? And the opposite would be refined. So, and the problem with carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, is that they raise glycemine levels. So your blood sugar shoots up.
Yeah.
And that causes things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, other cardiovascular diseases.
제가 문제는 이 혈당이에요. 정제 탄수화물을 영어로는 refined carbohydrates라고 하고 비정제 탄수화물은 unrefined carbohydrates, 줄여서 carbs라고도 얘기할 수 있는데 그러니까 정제 탄수화물에는 예를 들자면은 빵이나 잼이나 사과 주스, 오렌지 주스 이런 것들이 있을 수 있고요. 반면에 비정제 탄수화물에는 통밀빵이나 오렌지, 사과, 그 과일 그냥 자체 이런 게 들어가 있을 수 있겠죠.
Yeah, believe it or not, fruits and vegetables are also carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And they make us feel very full. That's why it's important to eat a lot of, if you're dieting,
Yes.
you know, to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables because they keep you full all day. But we need carbohydrates because they provide energy.
네.
For our bodies. This has become a nutrition course all of a sudden.
Absolutely. 그래서 이제 실험을 한 거예요. 그래서 두 그룹이 있는데 한 그룹은 이렇게 refined carbohydrates를 아침에 먹게 하고 또 다른 그룹은 unrefined carbohydrates를 먹게 한 다음에 이제 이 사람이 얼마나 매력적으로 보이느냐 요거를 물어본 거죠. 그랬더니 그 unrefined carbohydrates를 먹은 사람들이 조금 더 매력적으로 보이더라. 그래서 과학자들이 봤을 때 이거는 혈당 수치와 관련이 있을 것으로 판단이 된다.
So if you needed another reason to
Yeah.
eat healthier and eat more unrefined carbs in your diet, here's another reason. Because not only will you feel good, you'll look good as well.
그래요. 자, 첫 번째 표현은 rich in something이에요.
When something's rich in something, it contains a lot of something that's good
Yeah.
or useful, right?
그렇죠. rich in something, 무엇이 풍부하다. 자, unrefined carbs는 설명드린 바대로 비정제 탄수화물을 말합니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. In a new study, researchers in France found that people who ate a breakfast rich in refined carbohydrates were rated less attractive than those who started the day with healthier, unrefined carbs. Well, that's it for the headlines with Shane Harm.
Smartphone users have been increasingly expanding their use of mobile cash cards on the back of more diversified access, including QR codes to banking services.
QR코드 이용 등 은행 서비스 접근성이 전보다 높아짐에 따라 스마트폰 사용자들의 모바일 현금카드 이용 실적이 크게 늘어난 것으로 나타났습니다. How much more are people using these than before then?
A lot more. We were looking before early December, something like 25 daily cases on average, and that's jumped to something like 536. That's through February. So we're seeing more and more people using these QR code-based services, more and people using this mobile cash card service.
I believe it was 25 cases all throughout the year, unless I'm
I'm
mistaken,
terribly sorry.
but,
I may have that wrong. I
yeah.
got too excited about QR codes.
It could be a wrong translation there, but nonetheless, it's increased quite a lot, hasn't it?
It has. We're seeing
Yeah.
more and more people use it. I'm interested because when I was in China a few years ago and then in Singapore a year ago, I saw a lot of QR codes being used in daily life. But here in Korea, it seemed like that wasn't catching on. Now, though, we're seeing QR codes being used more and more. We have something like 17 local banks providing these QR-based banking services for smartphone users, and that's at 49,000 ATMs across Korea.
Right.
So it's seeming to be more and more popular. I've not tried it yet.
Nor have
I don't know
I.
what it's like, but it's obviously there are more and more tech-savvy consumers
Yeah.
wanting to do their banking through their phone, and this seems like a new and good alternative.
그렇습니다. 자, 현금 인출기 영어로 ATM이라고 하는데요. 선생님, ATM이 Automated Teller Machine인가요? 네.
Yeah, so never say ATM machine because that would be a tautology.
아, 그렇죠. 뒤에 머신이 이미 들어가 있으니까. 그렇지만 우리는 그냥 ATM 기기라고 하기도 해요. ATM 기라고 하기도 하는데
네.
어쨌든 ATM에서 M이 그 기계라는 뜻입니다. 현금 인출기인데 ATM에 우리가 이제 그동안은 카드를 넣어서 이렇게 현금을 뽑았잖아요. 그보다도 전에는 통장을 넣어서 이렇게 뽑기도 했고, 근데 이제는 QR코드라든지 이 모바일 카드, 모바일 현금 카드를 대기만 하면은 현금을 인출할 수 있는 서비스를 점점 더 이용한다는 건데, 작년 1월부터 12월까지 25건밖에 없었대요. 작년에 그렇게 많이 안 쓰다가 갑자기 작년 12월부터 올해 2월 말까지 500건 이상, 굉장히 많이 사람들이 쓰기 시작했고, 특히 설 직전에요, 선생님.
네.
그때 정말 많이 사람들이 아무래도 이제 설 때 용돈도 줘야 되고 이러니까 예, 이걸 굉장히 많이 썼다고 합니다.
Yeah, I have to say I'm going to stick to cash for the moment. I like having King Sejong in my wallet.
Yes, but well, this is a way you can retrieve or you can get the cash out of the ATM machines, if I can say that, without using a card. So
Well,
there you go.
there we
Yeah.
go.
It's the future.
It is the future. I just haven't caught up yet.
그렇습니다. 그래요. 그러니까 설명절 직전인 2월 8일 같은 경우에는 1,810건이나 있었다고 합니다. 가장 많은 건수가 기록이 됐다라고 해요. You may be right. I'll have to double check about the figures there, but nonetheless, we can see that there's been a huge increase in the number of people using this touchless service. Or,
Yes,
this
or
sort of
contactless service.
contactless service. Okay. Increasingly라는 표현 보겠습니다.
I'm getting increasingly confused about this more and more.
Oh, no.
I'm joking. If something is happening increasingly, it means that there is more of it or it's growing. So Sue gets increasingly exasperated at my bad jokes week by week.
Oh, no, I don't. Increasingly는 점점 더라고는 뜻이 되겠습니다. 자, 그 다음에는 diversified.
If something is diversified, it means it has more options, or it's going in different directions, or it has more variety. So if a company diversifies, maybe they only ever sold smartphones, but then they diversify and they start selling tablets and computers and TVs and other things.
그래요. diversify에서 diverse라는 단어가 안에 들어있기 때문에 다양해진다라는 의미가 있어요. 그래서 아주 다각적인 무언가, diversified access, 다양하게 우리가 현금을 뽑을 수 있는 그런 방법이라고 볼 수 있겠네요. Here's the headline again. Smartphone users have been increasingly expanding their use of mobile cash cards on the back of more diversified access, including QR codes to banking services. Now let's move on to the second headline.
Korean exports dropped more than 13% in the first 10 days of March due to a decrease in the number of working days, according to preliminary data from the Korea Customs Service.
우리나라 3월 초순 수출이 조업일수가 줄어든 영향으로 13% 이상 감소했다는 관세청 자료가 나왔습니다. Tell us more.
Yes, so we're down year on year by about 13.4%. Our outbound shipments during that period for this preliminary data were 13.5 billion US dollars.
Right.
So we've had daily exports increasing, even though the number of working days has decreased by 1.5 days to 6. We're seeing more exports of semiconductors and ships. Those have risen. And we've seen automobiles and petroleum products slip down a little bit. Imports are about the same as last year. Excuse me, that's very different. It's plunged compared to last year by 28.6%.
I think I threw you off with that earlier
All these
on.
numbers. Oh, my goodness. No, so it's down to about $14.8 billion during that period, which means we have a trade deficit of $1.26 billion.
Okay. Well, the expression used in Korean is 조업일수, and we're talking about the number of days you use machinery, but it's basically working days, right?
Yeah, it means the days that aren't a holiday.
Yes.
So, for example, a Sunday is not a working day. A Saturday, for many people, would not be considered a working day. However, it can be, depending on the circumstance. And, of course, a public holiday, like March 1st, would be considered not to be a working day.
그렇죠. 영어로는 이제 working day라고 해서 업무를 하는 날 이런 이제 조금 더 포괄적인 표현을 썼습니다. A decrease in the number of working days. 조업 일수가 감소한 걸 이렇게 표현하고 있고요.
Yeah, and on a side note, the other term that's a little bit similar is business days.
Yes, business hours as well is something you can keep in mind. And what about preliminary data?
Well, this is the first set of data. It's not the final set. So we get the first set of data, and that is the preliminary data, and then later on we'll get the complete data or the revised data. In the same way that, Sue, when you were a student, you might submit a preliminary draft of your essay to your teacher to look at. It's not the final one. You say, don't mark it. I just want you to know. I just want to know if it's okay or not.
맞아요. preliminary에서 이제 pre라는 게 들어가는 자체가 무언가 앞에 이전에라는 의미도 있지만 이제 preliminary라고 했을 때는 사전에라는 뜻도 있고요. 이 경우에는 이제 먼저 나온 데이터, 이게 최종은 아니고요. 예비라는 의미가 될 수도 있고 우리 축구 경기에서는 예선전이라는 뜻이 또 될 수 있습니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. Korean exports dropped more than 13% in the first 10 days of March due to a decrease in the number of working days, according to preliminary data from the Korea Customs Service.
The US has reportedly started airlifting embassy staff out of IT after dozens of heavily armed gang fighters tried to seize the political quarter of its capital, Port-au-Prince.
IT에서 수십 명의 중무장한 갱단들이 수도 포르토프랑스 내에 정치지구 장악을 시도하자 미국이 현지 대사관 직원들을 탈출시키기 위한 공수작전을 개시한 것으로 알려졌습니다. Tell us more.
This is an ongoing situation. It started on February the 29th when these gangs started their attempt to topple the government.
I see.
And it's reached this climax where the US have basically gone in. They've sent the Marines in to reinforce embassy security, but also to evacuate non-essential staff. And this was all done in the middle of the night by helicopter because they wanted to make sure, there was no attack, that they were safe.
Yeah.
The German foreign ministry has said that its ambassador has gone along with other EU representatives. They left for the Dominican Republic on Sunday. The Prime Minister of IT was out of the country at the time, and he's now stranded in Puerto Rico. And one US official has said, well, his government could fall at any time. It's a very precarious situation, and especially with things intensifying downtown in Port-au-Prince over the weekend. We're seeing leaders coming together in the region to discuss what's going to happen, but certainly there's no solution at present, and it looks like this could continue for a while, and certainly the government may well topple.
Exactly. Other embassies in Haiti as well are pulling out or closing and taking the necessary measures. When we say 어디 주재 대사관, in English, it's the something embassy in somewhere. Right?
Yes.
So it could be the US embassy in Haiti in this case. In English, you can say Haiti, but the original word or the original pronunciation is, of course, IT.
Yes.
So both are correct.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's going to be depend on who you're talking to. I think here on Morning Special we tend to go with the original pronunciation when talking about IT.
그렇죠. 우리가 이제 IT라고 하는 게 그 원어에 가깝게 발음을 하는 거고요. 영어식으로는 이제 Haiti라고 많이들 합니다. 자, 첫 번째 표현이 바로 이 공수작전을 펼치는 건데요. To airlift.
Yes, well, you can give someone a lift, meaning you give them a ride, but an airlift is more serious. An airlift is when you're getting someone or something out of somewhere by helicopter or plane, by any kind of aircraft. So it's an evacuation, basically. And so in this case, we had these diplomatic personnel being taken by helicopter from the embassy and out of Haiti.
And it's one word, isn't it?
Yes. There's no hyphen, just AIRLIFT.
네, airlift. The US has started airlifting embassy staff라고 했는데요. 말 그대로 하늘로 올리고 있는 이라는 뜻이 있기 때문에 공수작전을 펼치고 있다라는 뜻이 되겠고 lift라는 게 들어올리다 라는 뜻입니다. 영국에서는 lift 하면은 엘리베이터라는 뜻이죠.
Yeah, it can mean elevator or it can mean to get a ride.
Of course. 자, 그 다음에 seizing 뭘까요?
Well, I mean, the one thing to remember it is always to think of Robin Williams, to think of Dead Poets Society, because in that movie he says, Carpe diem, seize the day, meaning grasp the day, take hold of it. And that's what seize means. It's taking something, but suggesting you're doing it in a strong way, possibly even with force or with violence. So, for example, the police will seize the possessions of criminals they arrest. They will take them into custody so they can look at them and inspect them. In this case, we're having gangs seizing buildings, meaning taking over these buildings with force.
네, seizing이라는 게 이제 장악하다 이 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 carpe diem, seize the day가 하루를 장악해라 이렇게 직역을 할 수 있을 것 같아요. 물론 이제 하루를 즐겨라 이렇게 또 의역이 되기도 하고.
Sure, yes, it's a much more pleasant meaning when we have it in that context.
네, 그렇습니다. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 제가 헤드라인 읽어볼게요. The US has reportedly started airlifting embassy staff out of Haiti after dozens of heavily armed gang fighters tried to seize the political quarter of its capital, Port-au-Prince. Let's move on to the next headline.
Oppenheimer, a biopic about the father of the atomic bomb, has triumphed at this year's Oscars, taking home 7 awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Director.
올해 아카데미 시상식에서 일명 원자폭탄의 아버지를 다룬 전기 영화 오펜하이머가 작품상, 남우주연상, 감독상 등 7개 부문을 수상하는 큰 성공을 거뒀습니다.
I think we all knew it was a dead cert. I think everybody was expecting it to win, so no big surprise. But the fact that it has won so many is a big deal. It's the highest grossing Best Picture winner since Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and that was 20 years ago. It's also the first film to win Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actor since Ben-Hur back in 1960.
Oh, wow.
A very big deal. It's also a very big deal for Cillian Murphy, who won the Best Actor, because he's the first ever Irish-born winner of Best Actor. This is really, really big. It's also big for Robert Downey Jr., who's won his first Oscar. He was nominated twice before, once for Chaplin, directed by Richard Attenborough, which was another biopic about Charlie Chaplin, and also for Tropic Thunder, which was definitely not a biopic. And then Nolan, he's been nominated for Dunkirk, but this was him winning for the very first time for Best Director. And I have to give a shout out to Emma Stone, because Emma Stone took home Best Actress for Poor Things, and that's her second Oscar. She won for La La Land, and now she's won again. Barbie, because we talked about Barbenheimer last year, Barbie took home Best Original Song. Billie Eilish's song, What Was I Made For, took that home, but didn't get anything else.
Yeah, it was nominated in 8 categories.
However, it wasn't nominated for Best Director and Best Actress, and that was a big deal. People were talking about it. In fact, they were joking about it during the Oscar ceremony. However, I will say Barbie stole the show if you watched some clips from the ceremony because Ryan Gosling performed I'm Ken.
Oh, really?
And he did it with such gusto. He was dressed all in pink.
Yep.
He was, singing with Margot Robbie, doing fantastic dance moves on the dance floor. It was brilliant to watch.
If I'm not wrong, I think Ryan Gosling has 2 daughters. And I think he said in an interview when he was offered the part, he said yes straight away. And he said, I'm going to do this for my girls.
And he was brilliant in it. If you haven't seen the film, he is very, very funny.
Yeah.
And he was very funny at the Oscars last night.
Absolutely. 자, 오펜하이머가 굉장히 많은 상을 수상했는데요. 그 외에도 이제 여우주연상에는 에마 스톤 그리고 바비가 Best Original Song 상을 또 받기도 했습니다. 자, 전기 영화를 영어로 뭐라고 하죠?
It's not an electric film, it's a biopic. Now, we have the word biography, which means a book that's written about a real person. We have autobiography, which is a book written about a real person by that person themselves, writing about themselves. And a biopic is about a film about a person. There are some differences in pronunciation. How do you say it, Sue?
I don't know, actually.
'Cause-
Because I know... Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some people say biopic. That's my personal preference. I've also heard biopic.
Yeah, I think I go with biopic.
Yes.
But sometimes I get confused too. So.
I understand and I appreciate because of biography. I think that's why I automatically think of biopic, but you can say biopic. Both are acceptable.
그래요. 발음이 2가지가 다 가능하고 전기 영화라는 뜻입니다. 자, 그다음에 상을 받다, 수상하다, to take home an award.
Yeah, in this case, in this context, to take home an award means you win it. You can also just take home your homework or take home your lunchbox or take home your water bottle. But here, when we're using it in the context of some kind of ceremony, of some kind of competition, that means you got the prize.
네, take home an award. 이게 상을 이제 받다, 수상하다, 수령하다라는 뜻입니다. Here's the headline again. Oppenheimer, a biopic about the father of the atomic bomb, has triumphed at this year's Oscars, taking home 7 awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Director. Now let's move on to the final headline.
About 6 months' worth of rain has swept across the UAE, causing localized flooding and hail in parts of the country, leading to cancelled events, diverted flights, and closed wadis and beaches.
아랍에미레이트 전역에 약 6개월치의 비가 한꺼번에 쏟아지면서 곳곳이 국지성 홍수와 우박 피해를 입었습니다. 이로 인해 행사가 취소되고 항공편이 결항됐으며 하천과 해변이 폐쇄됐습니다. Okay.
There was a lot of rain.
A lot of rain, yeah.
If we look at the UAE's average rainfall, it's less than 100 millimeters a year. The National Centre of Meteorology in the UAE said on Sunday that in Dubai they had almost 60 millimeters of rain, and in Khatam al-Shakla in Abu Dhabi, they had the highest recorded in the country of 78 millimeters. We're talking pretty much almost a year's worth of rain in some areas and certainly 6 months' worth in others. This big storm started on Friday evening. It was mainly in Abu Dhabi. It spread to other areas in the UAE, and we saw this localized flooding. So events were cancelled, flights were diverted, certain areas were shut down, certain roads were partially flooded. So the authorities had to put an emergency plan in place to mitigate the effects of this storm. And, well, this actually 8 years ago to the day that a powerful storm wreaked havoc in parts of the UAE. It's on the anniversary, it's happened again.
I guess this time of year is sort of a rainy time, but in its extreme this time around.
Well, I think we're seeing it all over the world. These extreme weather events are getting more and more frequent.
네, 여러 가지 노력을 기울여서 mitigate the effects. 지금 이런 폭우의 그런 악영향을 좀 줄이기 위한 여러 가지 노력이 기울여지고 있습니다. 자, 첫 번째 표현은 localized flooding입니다.
Yeah, if something is localized, it's going to be in one area or in one particular set of areas,
Right.
in one location, as it were, in that local area. So, for example, when I was growing up, localized news was very important in our family. We didn't just want to hear about what was happening in London. We wanted to know the news for our town, like what new shop is opening, who's the new mayor, what roads are closing. That's our localized news.
지역 뉴스라는 뜻으로 localized news라고 할 수도 있고요. 그다음에 그 medicine에 있어서는 국소 마취.
Yes.
Local anesthesia.
Exactly. So, for example, when I've gone to the dentist to have a wisdom tooth out, I didn't have a general anesthetic. I had a local anesthetic.
Right.
I had a big needle in my mouth, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything.
맞아요. 지금 general anesthetic라는 표현도 써주셨는데 그게 이제 일반적인 전신 마취가 되겠죠. 그 전신 마취와 국소 마취 할 때도 이게 작은 한 부위라는 의미의 local이 들어간다는 거. 자, 여기서는 localized flooding은 국지성 홍수를 말합니다. 이제 한 지역이니까요. diverting은 뭐죠?
To divert someone or something is to send them in a different direction, to send them somewhere else because of a diversion.
Right.
You'll often see road diversions with a sign saying, go this way instead of this way, meaning the sign is diverting you. It's telling you to go elsewhere. We use it a lot for planes.
Yep.
If there's an issue with a plane, they may be diverted to the nearest airport, meaning they're told, land here instead of your destination.
네, 방향을 바꾸게 한다는 뜻이 있으니까 비행기 같은 경우 회항을 하게 한다든지 그럴 때 divert a flight라고 얘기할 수 있겠죠. 자, 이 헤드라인에서는 하나 이상이기 때문에 복수로 썼습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. About 6 months' worth of rain has swept across the UAE, causing localized flooding and hail in parts of the country, leading to cancelled events, diverted flights, and closed wadis and beaches. Well, that's it for the headlines.
The Board of Audit and Inspection has requested a police investigation into 56 public and private educators after it uncovered collusive ties between school teachers and 학원s in the development of mock exams for the CSAT.
감사원은 수능 모의고사 출제 과정에서 현직 교사와 학원 간의 공모 사실을 적발해 사건 관련자 56명을 경찰에 수사 의뢰했습니다. There was a lot of talk about, has there been a collusion? Is there a cartel between teachers and hagwons? And that's actually been found to be true.
Yeah.
Now there's going to be a police investigation into that. Tell us more.
Right. So an inspection by the state audit agency, I mentioned the Board of Audit and Inspection, or BAI, it's found that the number of teachers who colluded with private education companies, or so-called hagwons, in creating these questions for the sunung, or the College Scholastic Ability Test, or, we say CSAT, CSAT, in return for profit is far larger than initially estimated. So the BAI said on Monday they requested police to probe into 56 individuals, including 27 teachers and 23 officials of private education institutions who are under suspicion of violating the anti-graft law, obstruction of work, and breach of trust. And the agency said that it made the request following its 3-month inspection into the so-called cartel between public and private education institutions. And they're saying that the number of these individuals who are suspected of collusion is a lot more than they initially expected. And it's also, they say that it's up about 32 compared to last September when the Education Ministry filed a lawsuit against 4 teachers who participated in the creation of CSAT questions and kept secret that they had written questions for private education institutions.
I think the suspicion really arose a couple of years ago during the 2022 Sunung, when there was one question in the English portion of the Sunung. I think it was question number 23. And it turned out the text was exactly the same as one particular hagwon teacher's sort of like preparation test exam that they had prepared. And so people thought, how can this be the same? There must be some link between the people
going on.
Yeah,
something fishy going on.
Something fishy, exactly. And so it looks like a lot of people were involved. Obviously, the teachers that make the questions for the sunung, they are pre-selected, and then they go into a particular place, and they're shut off from the rest of the society for quite a long time. So it's not possible that that would have leaked after they went into that particular venue. But it looks like beforehand, public school teachers, they were giving out some of their test information to hagwon teachers or private institutions, and then receiving money for it. And things went round and round and round, and eventually it turned out that one particular 수능 exam ended up being the same as a mock exam.
Yeah.
자, 그래요. 지금 뭐 영어로 대략적으로 설명을 했고 아마 많이들 들으셨을 겁니다.
Yeah,
이제
it's big news.
22년도에
Yeah.
수능 영어 23번 문제가 어떻게 전에 어떤 그 유명 강사의 모의 시험 문제랑 이거 수능 문제 어떻게 같을 수 있지 하면서 그때부터 많은 사람들이 의심을 했었죠. 혹시 뭔가 이 출제 과정에서 아니면 준비하는 과정에서 다른 데로 샌 게
Yeah,
아닐까?
there must have been a leak.
리크가 있었던 모양입니다. 자, 첫 번째 표현을 좀 볼 텐데요. There was a collusion between public teachers and private teachers.
Yeah, so we can say they colluded, or there was a collusion, or there was collusive behavior or collusive actions. But being collusive, something that's collusive, it means acting together secretly or illegally in order to deceive or cheat someone.
네, collusive는 형용사고요. collusion이 명사가 되겠습니다. 명사 collusion은 공모 아니면 담합이라는 의미가 되겠고요. 지금 우리가 얘기하는 cartel 다 비슷한 의미로 여기서는 쓰이고 있는 거잖아요. 그 형용사형이 바로 collusive가 되겠습니다. 자, 그리고 mock exam.
Right, mock exam. So mock exam is an exam or a test, especially at school or at private institutions, that are taken as a practice test before an official exam.
자, mock라는 게 모의라는 뜻이 있어서요. mock exam 그러면 모의고사가 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. The Board of Audit and Inspection has requested a police investigation into 56 public and private educators after it uncovered collusive ties between school teachers and 학원s in the development of mock exams for the CSAT. Let's move on to the next headline.
1 out of 3 foreign nationals who visited Korea last year was aged under 30, according to recent official data, indicating a continuous trend of a younger median age among inbound travelers driven by the popularity of K-culture.
지난해 우리나라를 찾은 외국인 관광객 3명 중 1명이 30세 이하인 것으로 나타났습니다. K-culture 인기에 힘입어 방한 외국인 관광객의 연령대가 지속적으로 낮아지고 있음을 보여주는 수치입니다. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it sounds like people who are visiting Korea are kind of getting younger and younger. So the Korea Tourism Organization, they said that 35.6% of the country's 11.03 million inbound visitors from last year, that equates to about 3.93 million people, they were aged under 30. And the figure was significantly higher than the 27.6% that was tallied back in 2013. So they're saying this highlights the trend in which the median age of inbound travelers to the country is getting younger. And of course, they're saying, it's probably because of the popularity of K-pop and other K-culture sectors like K-dramas or K-movies globally around the world. And specifically, they said that those aged between 21 and 30, they took the lion's share at 25.3% or 2.79 million visitors. And the remaining 1.14 million were actually under 20, taking up some 10% of the total figure.
No big surprises, I suppose, in the fact that more younger people are having an interest in Korea and visiting Korea.
Yeah.
10년 전, 2013년에는 외국인 중에 30세 미만이 27% 정도였는데 10년이 지난 지금은 35%, 거의 36% 정도라고 하니까요. 그 비율이 많이 늘었네요. 자, 지속적인 트렌드다. Continuous trend.
Right, continuous trend. So, it's talking about a trend that keeps repeating or keeps happening. And of course, when we're talking about trend, it's like a change or development towards something new or different. And continuous, of course, means the act or fact of continuing or the prolongation of a state or activity.
네. continuous가 지속적이다라는 뜻인데요. 이 스펠링이 처음에 좀 어려울 수 있어요. 왜냐하면 뒤에 vowel이 굉장히 많거든요.
Yeah.
C-O-N-T-I-N-U-O-U-S 이렇게 씁니다. continuous. 자, 그다음에 median age.
Right, median age. You know, we talk about mean and median, but
Yeah.
median is if we lined up all of the travelers that visited Korea by age, and you know, so if there would be the youngest person and the oldest person, but the person that comes right in the middle would be the median age.
그렇죠. median age라는 게 이제 수학적으로 말하면 중위, 딱 가운데 있는 정가운데에 있는 나이 연령을 말하고요. 이제 또 참고로 mean age
Yeah.
아니면 average age
Yeah.
이렇게 말하면 평균
Yes.
연령이기 때문에
So you
이거는
would have to
정중앙은 아닐 수
yeah,
있어요.
add all of them
네,
up
그렇죠.
and then divide it by the number. Yep.
그렇습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. 1 out of 3 foreign nationals who visited Korea last year was aged under 30, according to recent official data, indicating a continuous trend of a younger median age among inbound travelers driven by the popularity of K-culture.
Scientists visiting Chernobyl have found that worms living near the world's most well-known nuclear disaster zone have developed immunity to radiation.
세계 최악의 원전 방사능 노출 사고가 있었던 체르노빌을 찾은 과학자들이 피해 지역 근처에 사는 벌레가 방사성 물질에 면역력을 가진 사실을 발견했습니다. This is very interesting.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of, you know, Avengers and Hulk. I think Hulk, was it Hulk that was
Yeah, he was
affected by
exposed to
radiation
something and
the
then,
gamma
yeah,
rays?
right.
Yes, I was thinking of that the entire time I was reading this article. So basically these worms that live near, of course, Chernobyl is the world's most well-known nuclear disaster zone. It's appeared they have acquired new superpowers or immunity to radiation. So this new study, scientists visited Chernobyl to investigate. These worms are called nematodes. They're tiny worms that have very simple genetic makeup, and they rapidly reproduce, which is why they were chosen, I guess, for this experiment. So they gathered these worms from soil samples, maybe rotting fruit and other materials and they tested these different samples for levels of radiation. And they found that the level of radiation varied from low levels, which could be recorded in major large cities, and high levels that are found in outer space. And they said that despite the high radiation, the genomes of the worms were not damaged. And, you know, of course, this doesn't mean that Chernobyl is safe for us to visit, but it suggests that worms are very resilient animals, which can withstand extreme conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the disaster of Chernobyl, this was 1986, and it affected hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
But animals have been living around the site for, you know, as long as we have known, and it looks like they have evolved, as you said.
Yeah.
Now they've developed some kind of immunity. The first expression to look at here is a disaster zone.
Right. So a disaster zone, we call them disaster areas as well. It's an area that has been stricken by a disaster like a typhoon or earthquake, and you have to take measures there to reduce the severity of the human and material damage that have been caused by the disaster.
디자스터 존이 바로 피해 지역이 되겠고요. Immunity.
So immunity, in this case, it would be the state or quality of being resistant to a particular infectious disease or pathogen. In the Chernobyl case, it would be to radiation. But it could also mean, in terms of in legalese, it could mean the official protection from legal action.
법률 용어로도 쓰기도 하는데 여기서 이제 면역력이라는 뜻으로 immunity라고 하고요. Be immune to something 이렇게 동사 형태로도 씁니다. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Scientists visiting Chernobyl have found that worms living near the world's most well-known nuclear disaster zone have developed immunity to radiation. Here's our next headline.
Catherine, Princess of Wales, has issued an apology for doctoring a family photo on Mother's Day after the latest picture sparked global furor.
자, 영국의 케이트 미들턴 왕세자비는 어머니 날에 올린 가족 사진이 세계적으로 논란이 된 데 대해 조작 사실을 인정하며 사과문을 발표했습니다. 좀 배경 설명이 필요할 것 같아요. 일단은 이름부터 좀 설명을 드리자면은 그냥 친구들이나 좀 그 편하게는 케이트 미들턴 원래 성이 미들턴이고 그냥 케이트 이렇게 이름을 부르긴 하지만 공식 명칭에는 Catherine이라는 원래 이름을 씁니다.
Yep.
그래서 Catherine을 줄여서 케이트가 된 거거든요. 그래서 그 Catherine, Princess of Wales가 그동안에 이제 복부 관련된 수술을 받고 한동안 공식 활동을 하지 않고 있어서 사람들이 사실 계속 궁금해했어요.
Yeah.
왜 계속
There's
이렇게
so much.
활동을 안 할까?
Yeah.
많이 아픈가? 그러면서 정말 진심 어린 걱정과 우려를 많이 하고 있던 가운데 바로 지난 주말이 Mother's Day 주말이었죠. 그때 사진을 하나 이제 가족 사진을 올리면서 저 잘 지내고 있어요. 이렇게 올려서 처음에는 사람들이 다행이다.
Yeah.
가족 사진 너무 단란하고 좋다 했는데 자, 이제부터 좀 설명해 주시죠.
Okay, so I think a few days ago, well, not a few days ago, but recently, so I read on this, and apparently major media agencies like Getty Images, AFP, Associated Press, the wording was very, they were told to kill it. The picture because they found that it might have been doctored or they were getting a lot of inquiries related to this picture saying that it's been edited, something's been done to it. So what Catherine, Princess of Wales, has done is she has apologized, coming forth and saying that yes, it has been edited a little bit. So she's apologized for any confusion after she said that she edited that Mother's Day photograph of her and her children. So she's basically taking responsibility for the changes in the photograph rather than her husband, who actually said that, or she says that her husband took it.
Prince William.
Yeah.
지금 사실 영국에서요. 그 주요 로열 패밀리 멤버들이 다 공식 일정을 요즘 안 하고 있어요.
Yeah.
찰스 왕 같은
He's not
경우에는
well.
네, 최근에 뭐 뉴스에서도 계속 나왔죠. 몸이 많이 안 좋아요. 그래서 지금 좀 쉬고 있고 카밀라 퀸 컨소트 같은 경우에도 요즘 공식 활동 안 하고 있어요. 그다음에 이제 프린스 윌리엄하고 프린세스 캐서린인데 프린스 윌리엄은 그래도 조금 이제 활동을 하고는 있지만 이제 프린세스 캐서린이 또 최근에 이렇게 수술을 받고 공식 활동 안 하다 보니까 주요 멤버들이 이렇게나 많이 지금 안 보이는 것에 대해서 영국 시민들은 너무나 걱정하고 있거든요.
What's going on?
그러니까 굉장히 얼마나 아프길래 이렇게 공식 활동을 안 할까? 얼굴 좀 보여달라. 그러면서 이렇게 우려를 하는 중에 사진이 올라와서 안심을 했다가 근데 이게 조작된 사진이면 그럼 진짜 아픈 거 아니야? 하면서 또 더 걱정을 하게 된 거죠. 왜 조작까지 하면서 사람들을 가짜로 안심을 시키려고 할까? 하는 그런 우려들도 나오고 있답니다.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though. I mean, because she said that, this is what she said, quote unquote, like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing, but I looked at, the article had, they closed up on the places that she had edited, and I was wondering, why would you edit like your daughter's hand area, or there was just very strange areas that you would edit. Like
It wasn't severely doctored.
Yeah, it was very slight. And if
Still.
I were gonna edit my picture that would go out in public, I would edit my face or something like that, right?
사실은 뭐 어찌 보면은 엄청나게 손을 댄 것은 아니지만 어쨌든 간에 그 어떤 신뢰가 조금 깨진 느낌이라고 보실 수 있을 것 같고요. 표현 보도록 하겠습니다.
Okay.
우리 지금 계속 얘기했는데
Yes.
사진을 doctoring 한다고 하면 무슨 뜻이죠?
Right. So we're not talking about a medical doctor, but when we're doctoring something, it means to change a document or change a photograph in order to deceive people. And when we talk about pictures, we say, oh, it's been photoshopped or it's been touched up.
Yeah. 맞아요. 조작하다라는 의미입니다. Be adjusted, changed 이런 의미인데요. doctored라고 얘기해요. 자, 그다음에 there was global furor or uproar.
Right. Global furor, global uproar. I do think the spelling that I'm more used to is F-U-R-O-R.
Without an E.
Without an E, but you can also spell it with an E. But this furor, it's the uproar you mentioned. It's a sudden, very excited or angry reaction to something by a lot of people, so by the masses.
자, 세계적인 소동이나 논란을 global furor라고 합니다. 스펠링은 미국과 영연방 국가들이 조금 다르게 쓰지만 같은 F-U-R-O-R 아니면 E 붙인 furor라는 단어입니다. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has issued an apology for doctoring a family photo on Mother's Day. after the latest picture sparked global furor. And here's our final headline.
US-based space company Above Space has said it is aiming to launch 2 space stations with tourist accommodations starting next year, offering all-inclusive luxury rooms and breathtaking views of Earth from space.
미국에 본사를 둔 우주 기업 Above Space가 내년부터 관광 숙박시설이 포함된 우주 정거장 2곳을 운영한다고 발표했습니다. 이 우주 호텔에는 모든 게 갖춰진 호화 객실과 우주에서 지구를 바라보는 환상적인 전망이 제공될 예정입니다. Tell us more.
Right, so it's the world's first space hotel, and it's going to offer incredible views of the entire Earth, and it is set to open soon. So Above Space, they're planning on opening 2 space stations. It's the Voyager Station and Pioneer Station. And the Voyager Station, it sounds like a larger one. They say it's going to accommodate about 400 people, and they're planning to launch it in 2027, so just a couple years away.
Right.
Pioneer Station is set to be a smaller version of the Voyager Station. It's a little bit more, I guess, exclusive. It's going to house 28 people. And the shape of this, I guess, space station, it's kind of like a rotating wheel.
Like a Ferris wheel.
Yeah, that orbits the Earth. That's why you can see the whole view of Earth. And they say the interior of this space station, it's going to be like a luxury hotel that we usually, well, I haven't been to a lot of luxury hotels, but they say it's going to look like a nice luxury hotel, but the views are going to be exceptional because you're going to be able to see into space and see the Earth. So you might be wondering how much will it cost?
Yes, I'm very curious to know if I can afford to go.
I don't think we're going to be able. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can, but I don't
Tell
think
me how much it is, and then I'll tell you.
Able to afford to go. They say that the trip will take about 4 to 18 hours.
Okay, that's fine.
And it's going to cost guests at least $55 million.
I won't be able to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if yeah, so
가는
only,
시간은
yeah, only the super rich will be able to go and spend time at this luxury hotel.
그 우주 호텔까지 가는데 걸리는 시간은 뭐 문제가 되지 않을 것 같아요. 4시간에서 18시간 정도가 걸릴 것으로 예상이 되고 이제 가는 데만 720억 원이 든답니다. 그 다음에는 호텔 비용이 또 추가로
Extra, of course.
드니까 나중에 갔다 오신 분들의
We can't
사연을
wait to hear.
읽어드리도록 하겠습니다.
But they do say that they're not just planning on this to be just an accommodation. They want to in the future run like a business park where people can go and test out rocket engines, space habitats, and test out all these other technologies while kind of staying at the nice luxury resort.
일단 뭐 모양은 이 대관람차처럼 Ferris wheel 아니면 Big wheel이라고 하는데요. 그런 모양이고요. 정말 멋있긴 하겠어요. 거기서 이제 지구를 바라보면서
I'll just see pictures or watch, videos.
720억 원 is a little bit above my budget. 자, 첫 번째 표현 보도록 하겠습니다. Tourist accommodation.
Right, so when we talk about accommodation, it doesn't necessarily have to be a hotel, but it's a place that you can stay or live in. And tourists are, of course, people who are away from home visiting another place. So in this case, a tourist accommodation would be, a place that you would pay money to stay.
관광 숙박시설이죠. And breathtaking views.
Breathtaking, something that's extremely exciting, very beautiful, or very surprising, that kind of takes your breath away
Yes.
would be breathtaking.
네, 숨이 멎는 듯한 정말 아름다운 것을 breathtaking이라고 얘기합니다. Okay, here's the headline again. US-based space company Above Space has said it is aiming to launch 2 space stations with tourist accommodations starting next year, offering all-inclusive luxury rooms and breathtaking views of Earth from space. That's it for our headlines.
Wholesale prices of apples have more than doubled over the past year, surpassing the 90,000 won mark for 10 kilograms for the first time, according to the Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation.
국내 사과 도매 가격이 지난 1년간 2배 이상 올라 사상 처음으로 10kg당 9만 원을 돌파했다고 한국농수산식품유통공사가 발표했습니다. So apples are getting more and more expensive.
Right.
We've known that for a while, but 90,000 won for 10 kilograms.
Yeah, and I eat a lot of apples. I love fruit, and sometimes I just walk around the market's just shaking my head. Like, what is going on
Apples
here?
are becoming a luxury.
Yeah, they sure are. And everything. Like, I love blueberries, strawberries, everything is just ridiculously expensive. Fruit is just ridiculously expensive here. The price of 10 kilograms of apples, it surpassed that 90,000 won mark for the first time in January 17th.
Yeah.
It actually hit an all-time high of 94,520 won at the end of January.
Oh.
And it's been above that 90,000 won mark since last week as well. So really, it's been difficult. So compared to February 13th of last year, the retail price of apples has risen 2.3%. Pears are even higher.
Yeah.
Pears are up 17%.
와우. 그러니까 지금 1월부터 해서 지금 올해 들어 사과의 도매 가격이요. 10kg당 9만 원 이상입니다. 뭐 조금씩 올랐다 내렸다는 하고 있지만 지금 가장 높았을 때 가격이 9만 4천 원 정도였고 1년 전은 한 반 가격이었던 거죠. So it was only about half the price it was last year.
Sorry, I misspoke there. It was compared to just February of this year. So from February 13th to around March 13th, prices are up 2.3% for apples and over 17% for pears. So sorry, I misspoke there.
Okay. But nonetheless, the wholesale prices of apples overall.
Everything is going up. Retail price and wholesale prices.
Yeah. And that's up actually, as you said, double compared to a year ago. So it's gone up astronomically.
Substantially, right.
Yeah, definitely. 자, 그러면 우리 지금 wholesale prices, retail prices 이런 단어들이 나왔는데요. 그거 보겠습니다. What do we mean when we say wholesale prices?
So the wholesale price is the price that the store pays for any goods. They buy it from a wholesaler. Usually wholesalers are, we'll say, like middlemen a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They have huge amounts. They buy large amounts and then they sell smaller amounts to stores. And then the stores put a markup on that price. And then that's the retail price. That's what consumers pay.
That's why we sometimes call these stores retail stores.
Sure, exactly.
그래요. 자, wholesale prices, 도매가가 되겠습니다. 그래서 소매가가 retail prices가 되겠고요. 자, 그다음에 double이라는 동사가 있습니다. This is a verb, right?
Yeah, when you hear double, it just means twice the amount. So prices, it says 90,000, over 90,000. They were around I think it was around 43,000.
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah.
So more than double.
그렇죠.
If you go to a restaurant and you order a double hamburger, you get 2 patties instead of 1.
그래요. double이라는 동사 2배로 늘었다. triple 그러면은 3배로 늘었다.
Quadruple is 4.
4배로 늘었다. 그렇죠. 그런 식으로 이제 쓸 수 있는 것이고 지금 사과를 기준으로 얘기했는데 10kg당 도매가가 1년 전에는 한 4만 원대였는데요. 지금 올해 1월부터 해서 계속 9만 원대를 기록을 하고 오르락 내리락을 조금 하고는 있습니다만 처음으로 이 9만 원대를 넘은 겁니다. 배는 또 15kg당 10만 원 이상이라고도 하고요. So to double and wholesale price 이 표현을 같이 봤습니다. Let me read the headline again. Wholesale prices of apples have more than doubled over the past year, surpassing the 90,000 won mark for 10 kilograms for the first time, according to the Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Cooperation. All right, let's move on to the next headline.
The Cultural Heritage Administration has announced that it will begin a project to restore and maintain the Yeonghundang area of Gyeongbokgung Palace, which was damaged by the Japanese in the 1910s.
네, 문화재청이 1910년대 일제에 의해 훼손된 경복궁 영훈당 권역을 복원 정비하는 사업 시행에 나선다고 밝혔습니다. So for the first time in over 100 years, this is going to be restored.
Yeah, no, it's good news. They're saying that it's scheduled to be restored by 2027.
So 3 more years?
3 more years, and then I'm sure, it'll be a place a lot of people will probably want to go. It'll probably be quite a quite a tourist attraction, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There was an excavation project in this area a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and they
discovered
actually say that
something.
they found traces of Korea's first power plant that they say was built in around 1887.
I know.
And also this area, they say, also had a building for royal concubines during the Joseon dynasty. So
Okay, yeah.
concubine is a funny word. It means a servant,
아,
royal servants.
네, 1880년대에 그러니까 국내 최초 전기를 생산해서 전등을 밝힌 시설이 여기에 있었을 것이다라는 게 또 밝혀지기도 했었는데요. 이렇게 한 110년 만에 영훈당이 복원이 된다라는 얘기입니다. Let's have a look at the first expression, and that is to restore something.
That means you return something to its previous condition or its previous situation. So you'll sometimes tell you if there's chaos in a country or a city,
Yeah.
the authorities will try to restore order. That's what's happening in Haiti right now. There's a
Yeah.
lot of violence there.
That's right.
They actually broke into some jails and freed a bunch of prisoners. So it's
Yeah.
absolute chaos there at the moment. So there's curfews now trying to restore order. Another thing you'll do is like restore buildings, or people like to restore old cars.
Oh yeah. Restore, 복원하다라는 의미인데 이제 restore cars means you get an old
An old
car that's not functioning.
Sorry?
A car that's not functioning, and then you.
Maybe not functioning, or it's just really old,
Oh,
it's
okay.
beaten up, and then you fix it and
Okay.
make it look really nice. So I think I've told the story before. But the next thing is in the 1910s. So that
Right,
means
right.
during that decade. So in the 1990s, my friend and his father restored this old wooden boat. I helped them a bit with it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just this old beat up boat, and they restored it, put a motor on it, and they still have it, and it's beautiful. It's like an antique wooden boat.
Wow.
So they restored that during the 1990s. His dad found it on the side of the road. Someone
no way.
Someone just threw it out.
And did you get to ride it?
Oh, all the
or-
time, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I took my wife out in it, even like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
오, 그래요. 1990년대, in the 1990s, 레이 선생님이 캐나다에서 이제 한 동네 같이 사는 분이 버려진 배를 복원해가지고 그 다음에 그거를 다 같이 타고 다녔다 이런 얘기를 해주셨는데 복원하는 게 바로 restoring이 되겠고 몇 년대에 할 때 in the 1910s 그러면 1910년대에 라는 뜻이 되겠죠. That was of course during the Japanese colonial period.
I've been learning about how there used to be tigers in Korea, and the Japanese killed all these eradicated tigers. I just learned about this, and it actually
They
kind of
eradicated many
enrages me. Yeah,
things.
I love
그래요.
tigers.
Well, let me read the headline again. The Cultural Heritage Administration has announced it will begin a project to restore and maintain the Yeonghundang area of Gyeongbokgung Palace, which was damaged by the Japanese in the 1910s.
A new report commissioned by the U.S. State Department has painted an alarming picture of the catastrophic security risks posed by rapidly evolving artificial intelligence, which could, in the worst case, cause an extinction-level threat to the human species.
네, 미국 국무부 의뢰로 작성된 보고서에서 인공지능이 빠르게 진화하는 데 따른 재앙적 안보 위험에 대한 경고가 나왔습니다. 이에 따르면 최악의 경우 인간종 멸종 수준의 위협이 초래될 수 있는 것으로 나타났습니다. Okay, so
Scary
tell us more.
stuff.
Yeah. Extinction level threats to us human beings.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay, so what the findings? Tell us more.
Well, the findings were based on interviews with more than 200 people over more than a year. This included top executives from leading AI companies, cybersecurity researchers, even weapons of mass destruction experts, national security officials inside the government as well. So the report, the warning in the report, is definitely another reminder of the potential threats that AI poses, even though, right, it's really captivated investors and the public, and everyone's making money off this type of stuff. There are a lot of threats. So the researchers, they warned of two central dangers, two main dangers posed by AI. So the first one being that these advanced systems could be weaponized by governments or by groups, organizations.
Yeah.
The fact that they could be weaponized, that's the big one.
So it's sort of going to be the next thing after the nuclear threat.
Yeah,
It's going to be
exactly.
the AI weaponizing threat.
Absolutely. And is there going to be an arms race
dear.
in AI, right? The second one now, and this is the one that really makes me think of the Terminator movies. There is concerns, and even within laboratories where, people who are working on this, is that they say they could lose control of these systems eventually.
Oh, no.
That would be the big thing, where these machines become self-aware and then they do things not to be turned off, right? Because if you pull the plug, they're turned off. Can they put things in place if they know that if they know that that's what kills them?
Right.
Could they end up doing things and saying things, lying, basically? So and then becoming self-aware. That is the really big thing. So the report says there is a clear and urgent need for the U.S. government to intervene now. But will other governments around the world intervene as well? That's the other big worry here.
그래요. 이 AI가 우선 첫 번째는 무기화가 될 수 있다. It could be weaponized. 두 번째는 인간이 통제 능력을 잃을 수도 있다. We could lose control. 이런 이제 크게는 두 가지 맥락의 위험들이 있다라는 얘기를 하고 있고요. And therefore, it could be a threat to humankind.
Right. Could they start doing things on purpose to mess with humans, like shutting down electric grids? That's one thing they say.
Which is what all those movies are about.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just putting out misinformation, putting out fake news. Could they sway elections? Could there be all these things that AI systems potentially could do? And hiding the fact that they know they're doing it.
Right.
Concealing that fact that they're self-aware.
이 보고서 같은 경우에는 이제 1년 넘게 200명 이상의 전문가들의 의견을 취합해서 만든 것이기 때문에 뭐 한두 명의 의견은 당연히 아니고요. 상당히 무섭습니다. 근데 보니까 미국 정부가 의뢰한 그런 작성한 보고서다라는 얘기가 나와요. So the U.S. State Department commissioned someone to do this, or many people in this case.
This report. Yes, exactly. So when you commission something, that means you've requested it and paid for it. A lot of times they'll do it with art, sculptures. A company will commission an artist to paint a mural or to do a sculpture.
Yeah. 의뢰하다라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. Commission. 그다음에 in the worst case scenario.
That's the worst situation. That's the worst case scenario is that the human species becomes extinct. That's the worst one. There are, watch the Terminator movies. That's bad, but at least there are humans that, do we have to fight against the machines? That's still really bad, but the worst case is that humans are extinct.
그렇죠. 최악의 경우라는 뜻으로 in the worst case라고 합니다. 자, 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. A new report commissioned by the U.S. State Department has painted an alarming picture of the catastrophic security risks posed by rapidly evolving artificial intelligence, which could, in the worst case, cause an extinction-level threat to the human species. Okay, let's move on to the next headline.
Archaeologists have found a small stone tube thought to be 4,000 years old among the remains of a mysterious Bronze Age culture that could be the oldest known example of lipstick.
한 신비한 청동기 시대의 문화유적에서 4,000년 전의 것으로 추정되는 작은 원통형 용기가 발견됐습니다. 이는 세계에서 가장 오래된 립스틱일 가능성이 있는 것으로 알려졌습니다. Right, so wow, tell us about this tube.
Yeah, well, this was uncovered in southeastern Iran. They believe it was probably used by an elite member of this society, the Bronze Age, which goes from roughly 2000 BC to 700 BC, when people were using bronze. This particular artifact, it's been carbon dated to between 1936 BC and 1687 BC. And this was originally discovered in 2001 when a flood unearthed ancient graveyards in this region of southeastern Iran.
Well, we've kind of known that makeup has been around for a very long time in some shape or form, but this is fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows that they had quite an understanding of metals and how to oxidize it as well.
Wow. So let's have a look at the first expression. It's thought to be around 4,000 years old.
Yeah, thought to be means that's what we think. We don't know for sure. We can't say it with 100% certainty, but based on evidence, based on some tests, we can say this is what we think now.
네, 이렇게 추정이 된다라는 뜻이죠. It's thought to be 뭐뭐뭐. 그래서 이제 이 튜브 안에 있었던 파우더가 지금은 완전히 건조된 상태이긴 한데 그거를 분석을 해봤더니 아주 짙은 빨간색이 나왔다고 해요. 그래서 이거 립스틱으로 쓸 수도 있겠다 이렇게 생각이 되는 거고 그 다음에는 여러 가지 과학적인 근거로 인해서 한 4,000년 전에 것으로 보여진다. It's thought to be around 4,000 years old, and it's one of the remains of this mysterious Bronze Age culture.
Yeah, mysterious. It's a mystery. We don't have all the facts. We don't have all the information, so we say something is mysterious. Or if you watch a murder mystery, you read a book about a mystery, it's when you're trying to solve something that's unknown, solve an unknown question.
Indeed. 불가사의하다라는 뜻이 있을 수 있고요. 뭐 때에 따라서는 뭐 신비롭다 이런 의미도 될 수가 있습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Archaeologists have found a small stone tube thought to be 4,000 years old among the remains of a mysterious Bronze Age culture that could be the oldest known example of lipstick. And here's the final headline.
Industry experts have warned that the impact of climate change on banana production and supply chains is likely to increase prices of the fruit globally.
기후위기가 바나나 생산 및 공급망에 영향을 미치면서 앞으로 바나나 가격이 전 세계적으로 오를 가능성이 크다고 업계 전문가들이 경고했습니다. So this is one more fruit that's going to be harder to get or more expensive. Tell us more about this. But this isn't just Korea. This is the
globally.
world. Yeah.
Right. So industry leaders and academics, they all gathered this week in Rome for the World Banana Forum, which
Didn't know they had that.
I had never heard of that either. So in addition to this warning, some experts actually suggest that price hikes around the world in grocery stores could actually help prepare countries where this fruit is grown to deal with the impacts of what they say is a warming climate.
So because prices are already going up, I guess they're saying this helps.
They're saying that we should be, because what they're also saying is for a long time, consumers have benefited from very, very cheap banana prices over the past decade, and that the price we've been paying actually isn't a fair price. So if these countries, certain countries where bananas are produced, especially in Central America, South America, that it can help these countries grow bananas. It can help them prepare for climate change.
It will help the producers, but
it can help them look after soils, pay their workers higher wages. So we need to sort of get used to higher prices, put higher prices in place now.
And then we'll be able to cope with that better. You know, if
they will. Producers.
The producers will.
Yeah.
And if the prices go up steadily, then maybe we'll be able to cope. But I don't know if they go up all of a sudden.
You mean consumers will be able to?
Consumers.
Well, I think we're just going to have to deal with it. We're just going to have to pay more.
I guess we don't have a choice then.
Yeah.
그렇군요. So let's have a look at the first expression, which is impact.
Yeah, impact is the effect that something has. So I think we're all, we were talking about prices, right? We go to the supermarket. I think we can all feel the impact of inflation.
The impact of something. 무언가의 영향이라는 뜻이죠.
You can also ask, say your company puts in a new policy. You can say, how will this impact me? How will this affect me? What impact will this have on my role or my job?
나에게 어떤 영향을 줄 것입니까? How will this impact me? What impact will this have on me? 그다음에 이제 supply chain이라는 표현도 있습니다.
Yeah, supply chain is the entire process of delivering goods from their point of origin, so even like raw materials or at a farm where you're growing fruit, growing food, to the consumer.
Right.
That chain all the way along.
아하, 공급망이라고 하죠. 영어로는 supply chain이라고 합니다. chain이 원래는 쇠사슬인데요. 이제 그런 식으로 공급망에서 다 연결이 되어 있다라는 뜻이 되겠죠. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Industry experts have warned that the impact of climate change on banana production and supply chains is likely to increase prices of the fruit globally. Well, that's it for the headlines this morning.